An 8-time Pro Bowler told Nolan Smith that he is up next, but can he be Fred Warner 2.0? We'll break that down. Also, where should the Eagles offensive line be ranked right now? We'll talk about whether we agree with the latest ranking from PFF. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into A to Z Philly, your number one home for Eagles coverage. Hit the like button if you enjoy the show. Be sure to subscribe and also ring that bell down below. That way you don't miss any of the coverage. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into Nolan Smith. We'll talk about what he did recently and what things were said about him. We're hearing a lot of buzz about Nolan Smith, and there was an interesting comparison put out there, but I want to know whether the people agree or not. We'll also talk about a special breakout player in the Eagles offensive line. But before we dive right into it all, shout out to the sponsor of today's video, BetMGM. Enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using code ATOZPA and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds specials. And with BetMGM at your fingertips, every play and every game matter more than ever. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks. Sign up today with bonus code ATOZPA and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Pennsylvania only. New customer offer. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we need to jump right into this. So, Nolan Smith recently attended the Von Miller Pass Rush Summit, and I want to talk about, what was said. Obviously, we broke down that video the other day of him at the OTAs, and he was, exploding right off the line, and he looked really good in the drills. And I've said all along, I'm impressed with the way that this young man is holding himself so far, and it's good to see him out here learning, absorbing some knowledge from one of the best, Von Miller, 8-time Pro Bowler, 2-time NFL champion, a guy who has done it for a long time with multiple teams, and he's still probably one of the best in the game. Unfortunately, he got injured last year, but Von Miller's out here spreading the wisdom, and as a young learner, it is always good to put yourself in that situation. There were other guys here, Micah Parsons, etc., but Nolan Smith is out here, and he's getting at it, man. So let's hear what Von Miller had to say.
There's been times where I got on my knees and I fucking pray for this shit. God, please let me go out here and play well. Or God, please, I want to get that offer. I want to go to college. Like, let me fucking get drafted. Real time prayers with God. And then you get in this situation, it's on you, man. You gotta take advantage of this shit. Take full advantage, man. I promise you. You do that, it'll be the Nolan Smith and Josh Uche pass rush.
Look, man, Von Miller's exactly right. Got to take advantage of the opportunity, and that speaks to a lot for a guy like Nolan Smith, who was drafted late in the first round, but he knows there's a lot of competition ahead. He's not coming into a place where he's ready to start day one. Maybe he is, on another squad. Who knows? But he's going to have to battle a lot of these guys, and I think he's up for the competition. I really like Nolan Smith, both as a person and as a player on the field so far. Let me ask you this. What do you think his year one production is going to be? I could see this guy having, 4, 5, 6 sacks at least. I think, he's going to, get in there and accumulate a lot of tackles if he gets snaps. I don't know if he'll get in given the other guys on this team, but the guy wants it. He's hungry, and it shows every time I see a little clip or every time I see, some footage or whatever it is, or him on a podcast, it seems like he's ready to go. And I think him and the Georgia guys are going to have a good connection. But it's good to see, Von Miller talking to him like, yo, this can be you, right? You gotta really work hard for it and take advantage. And he's learning from one of the greats, and it's good to see, He's going to be around great defensive linemen every day in practice. He's going to be going up against a really good offensive line in practice every day, so it's good to hear. Now, an interesting comparison was made from Geoff Mosher of Inside the Birds, and this was posted here on JAKIB Sports Twitter. Geoff Mosher says that Nolan Smith has the skill set to be everything Fred Warner is in the Niners defense. Now, do you agree or disagree with this potential comparison? I think I would lean more towards the side of disagreeing here. I don't see them being the same type of comparable player, but I think what he was more so alluding to is that Nolan Smith has the skills and the traits to develop into that type of player. We know Nolan Smith can be a run stopper, right? We know he's a little bit undersized, gets injured a little bit, but if he stays on the field, gets into that NFL shape, has these NFL training plans and these trainers to really get him right, he can be a good player. And that's why the Eagles were so psyched to get him late in the first round. We know he can rush the quarterback a little bit, but he's going to develop in that area. He plays outside, whereas Fred Warner is more of an off-ball linebacker who can play in the box or drop back into coverage. But I think what he's alluding to is that, Fred Warner, as we know, is almost like a jack of all trades. Obviously doesn't, rush the quarterback as much as other guys, but, he can drop back into coverage. He's almost not a linebacker in a linebacker's body, right? Like, he's tough, he's physical, but Fred Warner can cover all these different receivers. He can do a little bit of everything. They compare him to being a safety, and he's everywhere. He's everywhere. And I think what Geoff Mosher is trying to say is that if Nolan Smith can develop these traits to be one of those guys where he can plug in and he can move all around the field, in addition to what we know he can already do, I mean, that would be huge. And I think it would be huge for the Eagles defense, right? Because we know where they're strong at. We know where they're weak at. And right now, the linebacker position, it's still up in the air a little bit. So I think if Nolan Smith can just be a little bit of a hybrid and be everywhere, sometimes come off the edge, sometimes, obviously going to have to make some tough tackles. And we know Fred Warner, even though he can drop back into coverage, he still has that mentality and those physical traits. He keeps that toughness about him, which is what makes him so tough to go up against. And, I think Nolan Smith, if he can start to develop some of those traits, right? We know he has the personality. We know he's going to work hard, but if he can start to mold his game a little bit like a Fred Warner, I mean, it's wraps at that point, right? Because then Nolan Smith is an all-around player, and he's just going to keep working his way into the rotation. So, interesting comparison. I don't know if I would say he's Fred Warner 2.0, but I think everything lines up for Nolan Smith to continue to develop in other areas. So I like what I'm hearing. I like what I'm hearing. I like everything that he said, and I would probably put my money on him, getting more opportunity than we may have originally expected just by what we are seeing so far. Now, I mentioned that he's going to go up against an offensive line that's really good. And speaking of which, lately, the PFF has been putting out different positional rankings, and they put the Eagles as number one on their offensive line list. Do you agree or disagree with this? I think there's no doubt the Eagles are the best. I would say the Eagles have probably had the best offensive line in the league for about 3 years, maybe 4 years. I mean, they're just incredible. And when we start to look at one of the biggest training camp battles, one of them is with the offensive line. And who do you think is going to win out the job at right guard? This is an article on Philly Voice that kind of broke it down a little bit more, but we know the constants, right? We know Kelsey, we know Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. Left guard will most likely be Dickerson. I mean, barring anything crazy, but at right guard, you have the guy who is, the successor here in Cam Jurgens, right? We know he's going to move over to center eventually, but you also go out and you draft Tyler Steen in the third round. Jurgens in the second round last year, Steen in the third round. Who's going to win out the job? I would probably put my money on Cam Jurgens, given the fact he's had a year in the system, and he looked pretty damn good last year in preseason, but still a lot of time to go. Just something to kind of bring up here in conversation. I think, always having this kind of depth is a good thing. It's a good problem, right? You can never have too many, especially with injuries and things like that. Some of these guys getting older. But I think what makes this Eagles offensive line so solid and just so enduring and withstanding over these years is that they're learning from some of the best, right? You're bringing in more talent. That's your MO. That's what Howie Roseman always does. He attacks the trenches, but they're learning from the Kelseys and the Lane Johnsons and guys like that. So I'm excited to see what happens here. But, it says Steen played at tackle during his college career, but the Eagles listed him as a guard when drafted. And Nick Sirianni was asked during the weekend of the draft if Steen would have the opportunity to compete for the starting job that was vacated by Seumalo, who went to the Steelers. And he said, quote, "The best player will play." I think this is going to be an exciting battle, man. I think both these guys bring a lot of upside, and they're just monsters on the line. And I think no matter what, whoever plays, they both could end up with a starting job within a year or two. Honestly, I mean, you know, this is a good problem to have. This is a very good problem to have. As it says here, Eagles had, like Juergens, he was drafted to be the Kelsey long-term replacement at center. They want to get him on the field, even if slightly out of position at guard after picking him in the second round of the 2022 draft. And he even said himself that, you know, he's trying to bring a new flavor, a new taste to that position. So it'll be interesting, but I definitely think the Eagles have the best offensive line in the league. And lastly, PFF put out an all-breakout team for the defense, and guess who's on it, man? The other Bulldog, Nakobe Dean, who we've heard a lot of good things about, right? He's been calling plays and really being a leader out there on defense, so he needs to take a huge jump, and hopefully this Eagles linebacker core will start to mesh, and they'll find some gems there, and I'm excited to see this team as a whole. I think building on last year will be huge, and, you know, they've been to the moment, but now they need to take that step and win the whole damn thing, especially while you have everybody here. So we'll see what happens, man, but appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Appreciate everybody. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.